Your speech will be confused, and people throughout the world will be enslaved by it and will worship the false doctrine. Just as you will bind the land of the Greeks to an evil religious cult because of your false teachings, so you will call me, the Anointed, in their language. It will be your fault, due to your lack of understanding, that they will call me Jesus Christ, which means the Anointed. And it will be your fault, due to your lack of understanding, that human blood will be shed in this name, so much that it cannot be held in all existing containers. You are still persecuting me and my disciples because of my teachings, but soon the time will come when you will change your mind, when once more you face me and assume I am a ghost. Truly, I say to you, like so many others, you will be greatly at fault that my teachings will be adulterated and humans will establish erroneous religious cults. You, however, will be the cornerstone of the folly by which I will be called Jesus Christ and the Redeemer for a deluded religious cult. And Jmmanuel was furious, seized a stick and chased Saul away. Saul, his thoughts full of revenge, joined forces with Judah Iscariot, son of the Pharisee, and they discussed how to seize Jmmanuel so he could be handed over to the henchmen. Suicide. Once Saul had departed, Jmmanuel called together his disciples and said to them, "You know that Passover comes after 2 days, when I shall be turned over to the courts to be crucified, as it is destined, so that I will continue to learn. My betrayer will be Judah Iscariot, the son of Simeon, the Pharisee, because he is interested only in gold, silver, goods, and chattels. He will betray me for 30 pieces of silver, because he has been misled by his father's greed. But his joy over the pieces of silver will not last long because his mind is fickle and unstable, and he will soon feel the jilt. Since Judah Iscariot is without courage and has little knowledge, he will put his waistband around his neck and hang himself from a branch. Truly, truly, I say to you, although Judah Iscariot's suicide appears just, it is nonetheless unjust. Although humans have free will to exercise authority over themselves, they do not have the right to decide over life or death. The intent of the laws is for humans to live their lives to their final decline, so that in this way they may perfect their spirits. But those who judge themselves through suicide deviate from the law and violate the plan and the laws of creation. Realize from this that humans do not possess the right to sit in judgment over their own lives and deaths. They possess the right only to exercise their authority over the conduct of their lives, not to decide over life itself and, therefore, over death. Suicide. The laws say that no event or situation justifies suicide, and this includes suicide carried out by another person such as a hired murderer or mercy killer. Regardless of how much guilt a person may incur, or how heavy their load or burden is, they nonetheless have no right to determine their own death. Although Judah Iscariot incurs great guilt, he has no right to take justice into his own hands and decide over his life and his death. Every guilt and every mistake is a pathway to understanding by which the consciousness and the spirit are perfected. But if a person escapes from guilt or a mistake by committing suicide, he flees from cognizance and responsibility and must learn to be cognizant and accountable in another life. Thereby the process of perfection of the consciousness and of the spirit is delayed, which is not the will of creation. Either way, suicide is to be considered an act of deplorable cowardice and callous irreverence toward the laws and directives of creation. Chapter 27. The Disciples' Agitation. After Jmmanuel had finished speaking, the disciples became agitated and said, "Why don't we capture Judah Iscariot and stone him, so he can betray you?" But Jmmanuel was angry and said, "Don't you know that the law says, 'You shall not kill out of degeneration'? And don't you know what I prophesied to you, that I shall be crucified in order to gain a special insight? How dare you disrespect the fulfillment of the law, for thus it is given and intended? Just as I walk on my path, so each person will have to walk on their path. Truly, I say to you, if I were not to follow my destiny, how could I be in position to fulfill my mission, which will lead me to India? Oh, you who lack courage and knowledge, I have certainly instructed you in the truth, and yet you do not recognize it. How can it still be inconceivable to you that after my departure my teachings will be adulterated by you and disseminated in all directions as erroneous teachings and erroneous religious cults? Because of what you will do, the world will resound with misguidance and false teachings. Many among you will bear the blame that humanity will not recognize the truth, although I certainly have taught it to you. There will be great reverberations in the world regarding your false teachings, which you will spread. Clearly, you did not understand the words of knowledge, and hence the truth of my teachings. You are struck with blindness, like the legitimate people of this land who are held in darkness and oppression by the Israelites, just as the prophets predicted for these people, because they have forsaken the tenets of truth, like the Israelites who plundered this land and since then dominated and oppressed its legitimate owners. I have fulfilled my mission among this race. But, due to the fault of the Israelites and their false teachings, I was unable to teach any reason to this population, as their thinking is irrational because of confusing and mistaken teachings. I will leave, therefore, so that the teachings of truth can also be brought to two other populations in the north and east. Just as the legitimate owners of the land, who are governed by the violent rule of the Israelites, exist under the guidance of God, so also are the other two peoples under him. They are the people in the high north land where cold and ice reign on the highest mountains and at the end of the earth, and also the people in the land of India, because he, God, is the master over these three human populations. As a prophet, I have come back into the world from the realm of Arahat Atharsata. I was sent here upon God's will to instruct the three human populations in the newly conveyed teachings of truth. Asterisk Kartat Atharsata, lowest and first pure spirit level, which follows as first pure spirit level after the level of the High Council and, therefore, is the first pure spirit level, at which a human no longer needs a physical body. Some specifics about the Arhat Atharsata level, as the first pure spirit level that is in evidence only in connection with the Nocademian/Enochic line, not with other heralds/prophets throughout the entire universe. This connection is unique, because Nocademian/Enoch has returned from the Arhat level into a human body and has to progress through his evolutionary course once again. Therefore, I must walk on my path as predestined by Arhat Atharsata and requested by God, since I also serve God's will and his laws, as God himself serves the laws of creation. In Bethany. And Jmmanuel finished his talk and departed for Bethany and the house of Simon, the leper. Behold, a woman came up to him with a glass of precious water, which she poured on his head as he sat at the table. When his disciples saw that, they became angry and indignant and said, "What is the benefit of this waste?